Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's lesson, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a step in your coding journey. As you can see in 1.jpg, today we are focusing on a fundamental skill for every developer, taking input from users in Python. To build programs that actually work for people, we need to know how to interact with them and collect their data. Learning to handle real input allows your code to respond dynamically rather than just running static lines. We're going to keep this beginner-friendly and show you exactly how to make your Python programs interactive. Let's get started. What does the input function do? Now, let's look at what actually happens under the hood when you use the input function. First and foremost, it pauses execution. Think of it as a stop signal. Your program will stop right at that line and wait patiently for the user to act. It will not move forward until the user presses the enter key. During this pause, the function collects data. It listens to the keyboard and reads exactly what the user types. Finally, it returns a value. This is the most crucial part. Whatever was typed is captured and stored inside a variable. This allows your program to remember that information and use it later in the code. In short, input is the bridge that lets your program listen to its user. The basic input syntax. Now let's look at the actual syntax. Writing an input statement is very straightforward. As you can see in the code example, we use the input function and place a string inside the parentheses. This string is called a prompt. Its job is to act as an instruction, telling the user exactly what they need to type. When the program reaches this line, it displays the prompt and waits. Once the user types their information and hits enter, that value is captured and stored directly into a variable. In this case, the variable named name. Once that data is saved in the variable, it's ready to be used anywhere else in your program. In our second line of code, we are simply taking that stored name and printing it back out with a greeting. This simple process is how you turn a static script into an interactive experience. Let's start by writing our first interactive Python program. We begin by defining a variable called name. To capture information from the user, we use the input function. Inside the parentheses, we add a clear prompt. Enter your name, followed by a colon and a space to make it look clean for the user. Next, we want the program to respond. We use the print function to output a message. We'll type hello, add a comma and a space, and then use the plus sign to concatenate or join our string with the name variable we just created. Now let's see it in action. When we run the code, the terminal displays our prompt and waits. I'll type Ali and hit enter. Immediately, Python processes the input and prints back, hello Ali. Just like that, you've built a program that can communicate with its user. The most important thing to know. Now, pay close attention because this is the most common mistake beginners make. The input function always returns a string. It doesn't matter if the user types a name or a number, Python treats everything as text. For example, if a user types the number 25, Python doesn't see it as a mathematical value. Instead, it sees it as the characters 2 and 5 inside quotes. This is a big deal because if you try to perform math on that input, like adding 1 to the age, your program will crash with an error. You cannot add a number to a string. To fix this, we have to tell Python to convert that text into an actual number, a process called typecasting, which we will cover in the next part of this series. Converting input to numbers. Since we now know that Python takes everything as text, how do we actually use input for math? The answer is typecasting. To perform calculations, we simply wrap our input function inside a conversion function. As you can see in the example, we are using int. This tells Python, take whatever the user types and convert it into a whole number. By placing the entire input statement inside the int parentheses, the value stored in the variable age is now an actual integer. Now look at the second line. Because age is a number and not just text, we can finally perform mathematical operations like age plus 1 without any errors. This simple step is the key to creating programs that can handle ages, prices, or any other numeric data effectively. String versus number, see the difference. To really understand why this matters, let's look at this comparison. On the left side we have a string. If a user types the number 25 and we don't convert it, Python stores it as text. When you try to add 1 to it, Python doesn't do math, it performs concatenation. Instead of 26, you get 251, because Python just stuck the two characters together. Now look at the right side. By using the int function, we convert that text into an actual integer. Now, when we add 1, Python performs a real mathematical calculation, giving us the correct result of 26. This is exactly why you must always cast your input before doing any math. Forgetting this step is the #1 mistake beginners make, but now that you see the difference, you can avoid that error in your own code. Key features at a glance. To wrap things up, let's look at the key features of the input function in this summary table. First, remember the default type. Python will always return your data as a string. Second, we have the prompt, which is simply the text message we show the user to guide them on what to type. When it comes to numbers, we have two main options for type casting. We use the integer cast with the int function to convert input into whole numbers. If you are dealing with prices or measurements that need decimals, you use the float cast with the float function. Having these four concepts clear in your mind will make you much more confident when building interactive Python programs. Multiple inputs in one line. Finally, here is a professional tip that is extremely common in competitive programming: taking multiple inputs in just one line. Instead of writing separate input statements for every variable, we can use the .split method. As you can see in the code, we wrap our input function and then simply add .split at the end. When a user types two values separated by a space, like 10 and 20, the .split method breaks that single string at the space and assigns each value to its own variable, like x and y. In the result, you can see that x becomes 10 and y becomes 20. This is a much faster and cleaner way to handle data when you need several pieces of information at once. It's a great trick to have in your coding toolkit. Putting it all together. To conclude our lesson, let's look at the complete workflow you should follow every time you need user input. It all starts with a prompt, asking the user for information clearly. Next, you store that information into a variable so your program can remember it. Then comes the most important step: convert. If you need to do any calculations, always remember to cast that string into an integer or a float. Finally, you are ready to use that data in your logic, functions, or calculations. Following this four-step workflow keeps your code clean, predictable, and most importantly, error-free. You now have all the tools you need to make your Python programs interactive. Happy coding! To wrap everything up, let's review the most important points from today's lesson. First, never forget that the input function always returns a string. There are no exceptions to this rule, so Python will treat whatever is typed as text by default. Because of this, you must always cast your data using int or float before performing any mathematical calculations to avoid errors. If you need to make your code more efficient, remember the pro tip: use the .split method to read several values from a single line. And finally, for a great user experience, always add a clear prompt inside your input function to guide your users on exactly what they need to provide. Master these 4 points and you'll be handling user data like a pro. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next video. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends who are learning Python. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel and hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when our next lesson drops. Thanks for watching and keep coding.